Bag, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, I'm trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
Welcome back to another episode of B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'm your co-host, John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brown, the MC. Now, we've talked about Bill Gates a few times on our platform, and we're going to talk about him again today. Bill Gates, tech innovator, Microsoft founder, and also the largest owner of the most prime farmland in North America, with 269,000 acres of the most prime farmland in North America. Now, some people are left scratching their heads like, dang, he's a computer guy. Why is he investing in all this farmland? And, there are, you know, a few reasons that just make sense if you're a money guy. Land does not depreciate in value. It does nothing but appreciate. Matter of fact, since 1993, farmland has doubled in price. So it is a very safe tax shelter or piggy bank, so to speak, for someone like Bill Gates to have such a large swath of land. However, when you look at the words out of Bill Gates' mouth over the years and his stances on things like genetically modified food and eugenics, population control, or even supporting blocking out the sun. It calls into question like, okay, what do you really want to do? Is there a larger plan at play with you buying all this farmland? So today we're gonna just talk about one of Bill Gates. He does have the biggest farmland. And did you know that McDonald's fries, carrots, and onions are all grown on Bill Gates' farmland? Now, before we get started, I'm not trying to have you all up in arms. I know some people live and die by McDonald's fries. It's the greatest thing ever for some people. So we're not trying to get you upset. And we're not trying to get you upset about those delicious onions on your quarter pounders with cheese. No, we're not trying to get you upset about that. But did you know that this McDonald's is actually one of a big customer of these produce that's grown on Bill Gates' farmland? And we're going to look at that, take a deep dive into, let you hear out of Bill Gates' own mouth about how he feels about food, food security, sustainability, as well as eugenics. And and it poses the question: is this all connected? We're gonna let you make the decision, and we're not gonna put words in his mouth, and we're not trying to put words in your mouth. We're just gonna let you hear what he has to say, and let you come to your own conclusion. Now, before we get deep dive too far, before we get started too much, I do want to put up our copyright disclaimer because we have a couple of short videos of Bill Gates himself speaking, and just want to make sure we're covered. Copyright Act. of this here is our copyright disclaimer, right? Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair uses are permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, Farmer Brown, let's dive in on these McDonald's fries, bro.
First, I just like to say peace to the B1 family. What did they say? What's understood don't need to be explained. As we're going through this here at B1AG, we like to have discussions, stoke thought. The mind is a powerful thing to waste. And we see that Mr. Gates is not wasting his mind. Here at B1AG, we really want to inspire and activate and incite the B1 family to really look at food production, whether we're talking about large scale commercial farming or just on a domestic level at home in your backyard or even indoors. We just did a class the other day talking about some of the different indoor systems where you can grow fruits, vegetables, and even your potatoes that create these French fries. But as we're having this conversation, like Bruh said, this isn't to perturb anybody and get anybody up in arms, more so than really putting into perspective. Some people aren't wasting their minds. And, it's wrong for any man to try to decide what another man is thinking or put into another man's mouth his words. But as a B1 family that are affected by the decisions of those who are using their minds for whatever reason, we have to use our minds to figure out if there is something wrong. If these dots do connect, what are we as a family or community ready to do in response?
And family, let's be real. When it comes to food, we're more likely to find a McDonald's as opposed to a farmer's market in our communities. So this fast food, this is something that we ingest and eat, and it plays far too big of a percentage of our daily dietary intake, with fast food. So, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna pull up a video of Bill Gates, and this video is from 2012. And in this video, Bill Gates talks about population control. It's a very short video, but these are his words, and we definitely want you to hear what he has to say about population control.
Let's go to a couple of questions that we've actually received since we started the webcast. The first is on population growth. And the question is, one of our most pressing issues is population growth. How do you expect this to be addressed?
Well, the population growth issue at the global level is not that daunting. That is, the population percentage-wise is growing slower today than in the past. And so it will actually peak out. The problem is that the population is growing the fastest where people are less able to deal with it. So it's in the very poorest places that you're going to have a tripling in population by 2050. And so their ability to feed, educate, provide jobs, stability, protect the environment in those locations mean they're faced with an almost impossible problem. Northern Nigeria, Yemen, Chad. And so what we need to do is take this aid generosity and this innovation and go into those places, offer the women better tools where they want to space birthing or have a smaller family size, and improve health, because it's amazingly, as children survive, parents feel like they'll have enough kids to support them in their old age, and so they choose to have less children. Niger right now, it's still 7 children per family, Whereas in the richer countries, you're often at a stable point of 2.1 or even less. And so it's really an acute problem in a certain number of places. And we've got to make sure that we help out with the tools now so that they don't have an impossible situation later.
I play devil's advocate. Okay, healthcare. We all want healthcare. We all want to have optimal health, live well. But when we're talking about healthcare in regards to the women, I think it was also interesting the places that need this most help, where everybody's just so poor and unable to take care of themselves. Mineral and resource-wise, these happen to be the richest places in the world. This is where you're going to get your oil. This is where you're going to get your coltan, a lot of the natural resources that create the devices and all of the valuable things that we as consumers purchase. When we're talking about cutting the amount of family, this means, okay, we don't want you to have 7 kids, which, in Africa and a lot of cultures, your wealth isn't how much paper you have. It's, how much progeny do you have? So it's basically saying through healthcare, you can have less children. You can do the math through that. You would think better health, you would be able to produce more. If I'm watering a plant, if I'm watering a plant properly, or watering or feeding my pet or my animal, it means it's going to be healthier to be able to produce more. And so the concept of providing healthcare, and then there's less of whatever this is I speak of, I think that's something to question. But if you go to the next one, what is it, 4 years later in 2016?
Yeah, I also just like to add that, not only the places that he named are they places where they are minerally rich, but they're also inhabited by people of color. The overwhelming majority of places that he spoke of are inhabited by people of color, and he wants to restrict how and slow down their population growth under the auspice of health care and food security. It's funny, just like how all these McDonald's happen to be in places where color, where a lot of people of color, especially. It's interesting. We're gonna go to the next. We're gonna go to the next video. This next video comes from 2016. Sorry about that, wrong video.
We're doing a kindergarten game of connect the dots.
I think agricultural productivity is one of the most basic things that can help the poor move to a more prosperous life. There was a green revolution based on new seeds, and it raised nutrition levels, it reduced poverty. It was one of the great breakthroughs of all time. Now we need to bring that advance to Africa. If you look at productivity per hectare in Africa, it's a fifth of what we have in the United States. But there's no doubt that a combination of better seeds and better inputs, including fertilizer, can raise African agricultural productivity. And Ethiopia is partway down that path. They've almost doubled agricultural output over the last 8 years. So there's tons of ways that digital technology helps farmers. The cell phone is really kind of unbelievable in market prices, what's working, what's going on with the weather. All these decisions about what to plant, what are the prices, what are the diseases. Eventually, it is like your lifeline to all of the expertise that's out there. Soil maps, they can be looking at these satellite photos and say, gosh, we seem to be getting high productivity here, low productivity here. You take a photo of something and some expert looks at it and says, okay, that doesn't have enough potassium or enough nitrogen. That's mostly in the future, but that's real stuff. It's mind blowing.
Cute videos. And so when we talk about fertilizer, a lot of times here at B1AG, we talk about different inputs that are necessary for a productive yield with your crop. And so over the last few years, we've heard this company, Monsanto's. Here at B1AG, we're not here to disparage or promote any brand, but we also know when you're dealing with a lot of chemicals, when you're dealing with a lot of unnatural inputs on any sort of farmland or even your garden, is going to have long-term effects. Many times these long-term effects is you contaminate your soil over time. There's a such thing as runoff. And so these chemicals don't just disappear after you've produced, they run off into our waterways. And so when we think about a place like Louisiana, if you see on this map, Louisiana is right down there where the Mississippi River lets out all of these deposits. And around that area is called Cancer Alley. One has to wonder why and that's called that because cancer is more prevalent. Well, you know, it's not that agriculture is the only reason that exists, but you got to put two and two together that, you know, some of these agricultural chemicals that are put to create these great yields, you know, they deposit in the Gulf of Mexico. And as they're depositing, they dissipate along the waterways. And so these can create, there was a gentleman out in California that got a lawsuit because he had caught cancer, you know, dealing with Monsanto's and certain genetically modified products. When we think about the land in the Midwest, a lot of the land has just been stripped of its natural nutrients. And so we do know that there are talks within the White House or, you know, the government to pay farmers not to farm so this land can be refurbished. These aren't 1 or 2 years. This is 7 to 10 years that we're basically saying, hey, don't grow anything so this land can get back right. Well, in the process, we're looking at a group of, when we talk about melanated farmers only represent 1.4%. I don't think too many can afford not to grow. And so if I have to wait 10 years, I've already been shut out of a market where I can't sell what I have been growing, been getting my land taken away from me. I'm not, you know, if I need 40,000 to keep my operation going, I can only get a loan for 20,000, meaning I'm always going to be halfway short. There's not too many outcomes, rationally speaking, that's going to happen other than either I'm going to have to give up my operation or my land. And so saying that to say, these are some of the things you deal with when you have all of these extra inputs. The videos are cute, but how this manifests itself in real life, particularly for the farmers, I think there's a different story to be said. And if you play this last video.
And before we go to that last video, I would also like to say now, Feeding America projects that 42 million people, which is 1 in 8, including 13 million children, which is 1 in 6, may experience food insecurity in 2021. You know, this pandemic definitely added to the increasing of food insecurity levels. But Bill Gates, with so many people hungry in America, so many people starving in America, so many people that are food insecure in America, so many people that live in food deserts in America, he's worrying about ramping up food production in Africa. Think about that. Do those dots connect? Does that make sense to you? They're so concerned about the food security and making sure that, you know, the food, more food is grown in Africa. But I own 269,000 acres of the best farmland in America. But he wants us to focus on food production in Africa using these new seeds.
Patented new seeds. Meaning you can't get these seeds unless you buy them from me. You're not going to put this in the ground, grow your crop, and collect your seeds. You're going to have to keep coming back to me year after year to buy these seeds.
And how the P.B. Herman used to say? Connect the dots, la 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 la. Connect the dots, la 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 la. Going on to this last video.
of all the things that are out there, what could cause an excess in a single year of 10 million deaths? Now, clearly a big war could, and a pandemic, natural or created by bioterror.
Mind you, this is
A natural
2018.
pandemic, the last gigantic one was 100 years ago. We are healthier today, but the speed of travel and therefore the speed of global spread, that works against us. But in some ways, the bioterror thing scares me the most. All it takes is one small terrorism group. Those groups have used things like anthrax that are non-human to human transmissible, and as yet, thank goodness, they've never been able to build or get their hands on a nuclear weapon.
Are you nervous about your own life and
No.
what could happen?
This thing will get a lot of countries before it gets to the US, but even the US has to think about its global health security. It's a government thing to decide, okay, this is a problem. How do you move resources around? How do you allocate the scarce supplies? When an epidemic hits, governments having been prepared in advance and going through simulations, that will help them make the decisions that are only in their hands.
So the dots I saw, man, I just love the world. I got all this money. I used to ask, it's not to digress from the topic. I used to ask when I was younger, what do the people who have all the money care about? Do they care about making more money? Money is power. Power is the ability to move things. If I can already move everybody around me because I'm paying your salary, what's the next best thing but the world? Like I said, we can't get in anybody's mind to know what anybody thinks. But like you have pointed out, every area where all of this help and concern is where melanated people are a majority. In the first video, he did say, global population isn't a problem everywhere. It's just in the poor places where people aren't able to get this help. When we apply this to the farmers, so I can stay where I stay at in Kentucky, when we think about the socially disadvantaged farm bill that just passed. Out of 75,000 total farmers in this Commonwealth of what we'll call Kentucky, I would say less than maybe 400 what we call black farmers, only two, not 20, not 200, only 2 farmers qualified for the debt relief. But you're poor. You need all of this help. How did this debt accrue? It accrued because, say starting in 1930, 1940, my family had all of this land. We're fresh off of what we say slavery in North America. And so we know how to grow. We know how to grow with minimal inputs, but we're now in a global market where we're trading. And so to be able to compete within this global market with my 100 acres, those that were fortunate to get their 40 acres and a mule, I'm gonna need these inputs. Like I said, these inputs being fertilizer, access to water for irrigation, seed. We know a few years back, a lot of black farmers, especially in the South, got sold bad seed. And to pay for all of these, I need to get a loan. Since I know the B1 community doesn't necessarily know about the struggle I got going out here in the country in Southeast Georgia, in Carolinas and Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. And so I got to go to the USDA or I got to go to a private lending institution to get some money. I know I need 40,000, and I know if I can get this 40,000, man, I can easily generate about $500,000 off of this plot that I have of beans, of cotton, whatever the crop is. But I go to these lending agencies and only get half of it. Meaning I can only get half of the seeds I originally had in my master game plan. I can only get half of the fertilizer, meaning either I'm going to only be able to grow half of my field or have to spread it out amongst the rest of the field. Either way it goes, my end product isn't going to be something that's going to be competitive in a market. Once again, I saw a sister on here talked about India. And so India, and this is sad, this is real sad. We have our problems here, but farmers around the world are committing suicide. Suicide, not out of, I'm just depressed because life is horrible. But when you're producing, when your family legacy is tied to your ability to produce and feed people, and, you've been given all of these glimpses of hope that, hey, I know I did you wrong in the past, but here I'm going to help you. And then that help you received only put you deeper in debt or destroyed your land. this is enough to make a person go crazy. I know just living in the city, there's so many things that make us go depressed. But imagine you have this land where you just really want to go out and produce something that people consume. Tying this to the conversation we're having today. So we find ourselves in 2021, a year after this phenomenon. You know, you think about the bubonic plague. There's been plagues that's affected humanity throughout the centuries. I imagine if we had a true history, you know, these things happen. But if we know over the last few weeks, there's been this discussion about, oh, this didn't come from a bat soup. You know, this came from a laboratory. And so you got to think about all of the mitigation, all of the help that was given, that was suggested through the international institutions as well as national and local, was based on something that, you know, the general populace didn't get the full information on how it came about. And so, okay, maybe I came up with a great solution to address this issue. But if this issue isn't natural in its nature, then anything I do to address it isn't necessarily going to be a natural remedy. What does this have to do with farming, man? Y'all cats is going crazy. McDonald's. And so we know the eviction moratorium is getting, a lot of states are ending the eviction moratorium. We know a lot of people a lot of states are cutting the unemployment benefits. A lot of relief is getting cut. So a lot of people are being put in a very distressed situation. And so, okay, I'm not even getting 300 a week. So guess what I'm going to have to do to eat? Because regardless of what's going on in these people's minds, whoever's making decisions in the governing bodies, your children's bodies still have to eat. Your elders' bodies still have to eat. You as the worker within your family, or whether you're by yourself or in a family unit, you still have to eat. And so what's the next best thing available? Like Hen pointed out, it is your fast food. It is your McDonald's. When I was growing up, McDonald's was like a treat. You know, we didn't eat McDonald's very much. And I remember oh man, we get to eat a cheeseburger. Okay, somebody, you know, once again, we can't judge anybody, but somebody who made the computers that y'all are just addicted to, you know, that dopamine rush you get from this screen in front of you, that harvests all of this material from Africa where all these poor people are. But this device, I mastered it. And I made even more money because these viruses that are on these computers, okay, I have the solution. I have the programs so you can put into your computer. And so I created a computer that didn't exist. And so now you have a thing. Okay, now this thing, because you like it so much, has a virus. It has a problem. And so I'm going to sell you a program, which is going to cost you just as much as the programs that work to fix it. As above, so below. And so anybody that has a good idea doesn't be like, man, this idea worked for me. It made me a lot of profit and it gave me power. So I'm going to just throw it away. It worked. It literally has, we have, 4 billion people on the planet now that are attached to what we call the internet. Nobody in their right mind will give up a good idea. Where do you go the next step? We had talked about Frederick Douglass talking about how food was used as a weapon of war. How food was used to keep people enslaved, in bondage, mental bondage. You know, when we wake up in the morning, and it's kind of a sobering pill to swallow. Each of us have a choice to make. We can go, there's 360 directions we can go any morning we wake up. We don't have to go to work. We don't have to hop in the car and go wherever we go. We don't have to hop on the bus, the taxi. We don't have to we don't have to do anything. So it's all a choice. And when we talk about this concept of slavery, it's not saying it didn't exist. It's like, okay, let us delve deeper into how this concept of slavery exists. When you're given limited resources, and when I hate to use that word given, but when we allow ourselves to be subject to limited resources, such as a McDonald's with genetically modified potatoes that create the French fries. I just want my babies to have something to eat today. You know, I didn't have the money to go get these high-priced steaks because the meat processor just went down last week. And so now what I'm paying for beef or meat or whatever you eat, now I'm paying double for that. So I don't have the same money. I can go and just, you know, go to the store and prepare a whole meal. Okay, now because this assistance is getting cut, or we find ourselves in a pandemic, we find out a lot of the jobs aren't necessarily paying a living wage. Okay, I can't afford to be at home to cook. I have to be out here working. I have to be out here hustling, doing what I got to do. And so what is the solution? The solution is fast food. Since you don't have the time, the luxury to go slow, cook slow, since it's not in your mind to grow food, because the average family in North America across ethnicity is 3 generations separated from a farm. So I have these fast food joints available to you. what is it? Order out of chaos. I create the problem and sell you the solution. And so because I know, I'm not, none of these people we speak of are standing behind the counter. It's not like the people behind the counter are in on this great secret to destroy the world. But once again, you're going about conducting life. And so I happen to work at a place that supplies this food that, is accessible to the people in this particular zip code. We've had the discussions before. A lot of grocery stores are based on zip codes. The food that you find available in your grocery store is going to be based on where do you live. If you live in one of these poor areas, like he likes to talk about, guess what? You're not going to get the same food as somebody in, say, a well-to-do area. This isn't conjecture. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is what it is. And so when we think about this concept of pre-existing conditions that make you the prime target for us to experiment with you with ways to help you, with ways to make you healthy, and so you have less children. We keep hearing reports about blood clots and miscarriages. You got to wonder, do these dots connect, people?
Connect the dots, la 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 la. Connect the dots, la 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 la. Now, McDonald's, fast food, GMOs. Like, it was really disturbing is that Bill Gates is openly talked about and advocated for genetically modified foods. These genetically modified, and he also has been very upfront about his intent on using those 269,000 acres to use to experiment on seeds and things like that. So he's already created a direct pipeline of these experimental seeds, genetically modified foods, and whatever else he's concocting. Is to create a direct pipeline to the mass populace of the country through McDonald's. Y'all think about that. Somebody who's very concerned about population growth, somebody who is really a proponent of eugenics, which is population control, somebody who is just so gung-ho about helping out poor people and making sure that they're healthy, but doesn't want to give them organic, healthy foods.
We think about all of these things culminating right now in this moment that we're talking, the internet beefs with gentlemen and women in our community that have a positive effect in our community. They're inspiring minds. They're making people want to become entrepreneurs. They're making people feel like they have a voice to really speak up about the things that's plaguing our community. And as we're watching, because all of these things happen in real time, there's no such thing as pushing the pause button and waiting until we get over our differences and grievances, and then we can get back to being concerned. So in real time, while we're, getting engaged in the beef, getting engaged in contention, I really, believe it or not, I don't like going into the boogeyman factor because, no one man, what did Kanye say? No one man should have all that power, and no one man does. But if I've convinced you that the only way you can eat is through the way I've convinced you that you eat, you got to go through this drive-through. Woman, you don't have enough time to be at home cooking for your children. That's bondage. That's bondage. That toxic masculinity. Hey, man, you don't need to be out in that field sweating. Here, take this rubber ball. Bounce this up and down the court. Take these rocks. Hope you don't get caught. But if you do, I got these prisons that we can make a couple of stacks off of you a year. And then I'm going to have you working my 269,000 acres of land for pennies on the dollar. All of these dots connect, family. When we have this B1AG conversation, it's not that we like hearing ourselves talk. All of us have our wake up, what do they call it? The nigga wake up moment. I've had a few of them now, and I realize how, I love my children. I love my family. I want my children to have a fighting chance. It would be great if they're just wealthy beyond, beyond my imagination. But I know that starts with them at least getting to the next day. And I'm 40 years old. And, we keep hearing this word this concept 2050. Oh, by 2050, it's just going to be so many of these poor people that's just reproducing all over the world like rabbits. This 2050. And we also know that, according to statistics, that this group of this group of prolific people is going to be at zero wealth. Zero wealth. We also see that the person producing your fries, your carrots, and your onions feels like, okay, the world will be a better place if these poor people who keep reproducing are reproducing less. I was talking to my mother earlier, and just the concept of so my mother's in her 70s, and so she was in a generation where, okay, I can go to work, I can teach, I can work in this factory, I can work an honest job, and there's a semblance of this thing called retirement, a semblance of this thing called I got a nest egg. We're in a generation now. We're coming into the post-pandemic. I don't know when the official day that, okay, the pandemic's here today and then it's gone. But life ain't going to be the same. Social Security, as we understood it growing up with our elders, it ain't going to be the same. And so when we're talking about this 2050 wealth, investment is great. Investment in stocks and bonds is great. But are we investing our minds? Because the guy we're speaking of now has invested in his mind over a long period of time. I imagine dad passed down to him, hey, son, this is what's important in the world. If you like this, we already got the money. So if you want this power, you got to control your farm. America's a big farm, y'all. Our ancestors were written into what they call the Constitution that was derived from the 5 civilized tribes. It's 3/5 of a human being. You're livestock. Where do livestock live? They live on a farm. It's hard for our egos to internalize that there's entities that view our presence on this planet as a flock that needs to be culled. When are we going to invest in our ability to grow food? I'm not saying that, hey, you saw this podcast today and you're going to get up tomorrow and plant a seed and suddenly you'll be self-sufficient. Absolutely, bro. Shadow property. This isn't an overnight thing. We just showed videos. This was since 2012 to 2018. And we see how these things have culminated. We see how these dots are connecting. This was consciousness. You don't become a multi-billionaire, the so-called richest person in the world, by happenstance. You can't stumble upon wealth. Dr. Boyce can tell you, wealth is very calculated, strategizing. What is it that people need? This is what any formidable entrepreneur understands. What is it that the people need? What do I have the means to produce? We happen to be on a planet. We happen to be in a land that they used to call Turtle Island. We call North America now. It might be called something else in however long. But we're on a piece of land, a piece of real estate that was granted by the Most High that produces food. We also have entities that have accrued enough money because we like our devices that I'm going to buy up all this real land. I'm going to let y'all fight over these arbitrary things going on these devices that with one push of a button, you see all these ransomware attacks, all of this can shut down. And so if I don't have my emotions and that dopamine rush I'm getting from my devices, if my car shuts down because there's a run on gas, if I can't go to the grocery store and get the items that I want to buy, what does that leave you with? That leaves you with, I can do with you whatever I want you to do. A squirrel doesn't have these problems. A cockroach, we talk about, your president called us roaches. Peace to the elder Judge Joe Brown. These little black kids are roaches. There's some people that view us that way. I see I will never say king because I don't have a kingdom, but I think a lot more of myself than a roach. But, what does this mean if I'm not able to produce food for myself and the person that does sees you as a roach? How does this power dynamic work? So all we're saying with this conversation is we need to get black to the garden yesterday. We need to think decade-long plans. This isn't about, okay, today suddenly I'm going to just change the world because I got this epiphany to start growing. We need to start leveraging our networks. We really need to start reevaluating our relationships with what we call friends and family. We need to have discussion. Hey, there's these entities that's buying up all of this land. Because we're going broke, because our jobs are getting cut, because the majority of black farmers right now have to work an extra job because they can't depend on that the government or the private lending institutions are going to help them fund their operations. Are we as a community, I hate to sound like a broken record, but you can't say it enough, because are we as a community ready to fund the growers? To me right now, especially in the B1 family, and this is just my modest opinion, I don't speak for anybody but myself. The most valuable people we have in our community right now don't shoot jump shots. They know how to drive tractors. They know how to build high tunnel facilities. They understand the seasons. They understand the natural resources. They understand cycles. They understand the moon in relation with the sun, in relation with in relation with the bedrock. They understand the difference between organic and non-organic. They understand how to plant your crops in such a way where you're scaling them to where I'm going to be able to produce all year. These are some of the most valuable minds. If you can match these minds with the minds that understand finance, and since we find ourselves in a community, a family that's not getting this help, we're not getting this irrigation on our plant that we call a melanated family. But we do have faucets at this brief moment in time. We do have access to the water, so to speak. But what are we watering? What are we watering with our fiat? What are we watering with our thought energy? Are we going to keep giving our thought energy to going back and forth beefing with people who have come out with their actions and said, I want to help the community. I want to do something to the community. Should we be giving our energy to fueling these fires that's making us go in on each other? Or should we be giving our energy to water some of these crops from these farmers? Because it's not that many left. It's the last of a dying breed. And these are some of the most valuable, in my opinion, the most valuable minds that we have right now. Because they know how to produce the food for us to get to the next day, to figure out what are we going to build, to figure out, okay, since we can feed ourselves, since we've been able to preserve the people to know how to build, how do we teach more people to know how to produce? How do we teach more people to know how to build? How do we teach more people to understand how to finance these people who know how to produce and build and market and distribute? We were fortunate to talk to a sister down in the Bahamas a few weeks ago. They're having the same issue. Though our tongues might be different. Once this tower fell, so to speak, Nimrod's tower, our tongues were separated. And so we don't know what to call ourselves. We don't know what tribes we come from. Some of us don't even know the concept of a tribe, but we know that there is an active effort to help the poor brown people around the world to be healthy by having less of you. You can have less of you by me giving you this food, this particular type of food. And then medicine sometimes too. What are our people doing in real time? Because we see there is an effort to help us minimize the tribe. We might not speak the same language. We might not agree to the same political ideologies. Some of us don't necessarily ascribe to the same religious views. Some of us are atheists. Some of us are holy rollers. Some of us read the Quran. Some of us read the Bible. Some are in Kabbalah. But every one of us, if you hit the mute button on life, all of our stomachs are going to grumble. After 7 days? Fasting is cool. I was listening to the elder Phil Valentine talking about we're predatory. Everything we eat, we have to kill. Whether it's plants or animals, we've morphed into predatory beings where, we have to destroy something to enrich ourselves. What are we doing in real time to change this paradigm to where we're now, we're having food that has barcodes, not on the packaging, but the food. The seed has a barcode, meaning if you don't purchase this, you're not going to get it. You can put your seed in the ground all you want, man, but it's not going to grow nothing but the fruit or the vegetable. The fruit and the vegetable isn't going to have no seeds. And if y'all are foolish enough to let me sell to you that, hey, somehow this apple that has no seeds or these grapes that have no seeds is somehow healthy, it might taste good and sweet, but that's science. Through science, I can make this very unnatural, unhealthy thing taste very good to you. What do they say? Feed the bees honey. Our bees are dying off right now. How are we going to make it rain on our minds that know how to produce? And how are we going to produce more productive minds? What does 2050 look like? What does 2030 look like? The UN has an agenda, do we?
I know here at B1AG, we do have an agenda. We want you to grow. We want you to grow. We want you to grow hard. And then we want you to grow harder. Put your prints in the mud, shovels in the ground, cover up them seeds, and prepare for a great harvest. Now, we do have a class that we are at the Black Business School. And it's called, it's healthyblackfood.com. Sign up, healthyblackfood.com. Learn how to grow your own food. It's empowering. It's entertaining. But it's also enriching, and it's a survival skill. We don't want you to have to worry about GMO French fries or 3D printed chicken nuggets or uh, steaks that are grown in a lab. I want to show you the natural way to do it, to grow real food, to get real health results. Food is medicine. Don't never forget that. Food is medicine. Also, if you have any questions, so you want to reach out to us, you want to send us pictures of your garden, or you just want to connect, give us a holler. B1AgHipHop@gmail.com. B1AgHipHop@gmail.com. Hit us up. We do answer. Now, Farmer Brown talked about your boy Bill Gates. He wants to help us so much. Isn't that so lovely? He's so nice. Such a nice guy. So great. But if you really want to know something, if you really, really want to know something, what do they need to do, Farmer Brown?
If you really want to know something, understand we are in our finest hour, but it's time to learn how to grow something.
There it is. B1AG family. Have a wonderful day. It's Friday. I don't know what it looks like where you're at. It's 12:45 p.m. and it's already 87 degrees. Sun is out. Me personally, I'm gonna get me a face full of sunshine today, and I'm gonna enjoy the breeze when it does come across. And you never know. I just might take it to the beach today. I don't know, but I'm gonna enjoy what the universe and the great creator has given to us, this land, air, and water. It gave us everything that we need to survive. We're born into this world abundant. So let's be abundant. Let's be prosperous. Let's love one another. And we'll catch you on the spin around. When we come back around, we'll catch up with you again. It's B1AG. I'm John Henry Harris, Farmer Brian MC. And yeah, this way. Yeah, that way. Yeah, that way. Now, we'll thank you for sitting with us for this daily bread. We hope you've been well fed, and we'll see you very soon. Peace out.